Hello, hello, hello. Hi, everybody. Roz is here, and this is April 1st, first Friday, our supplier diversity talk that we held and that we host every first Friday of the month. And today is with no exception, we are going to have a awesome show today. So happy to see you. Please get on and share. I'm so happy to like be, you know, just among everybody today. It's April 1st. This year is flying by. One of our priorities with M for MM is really looking at supplier diversity. What does it mean? How do we accomplish the goals that we set? What are the goals? What should the goals be? How do we interact and work with the cannabis community so that they too adopt supplier diversity? Supplier diversity is not new. The conversation is not new. The opportunity to grow businesses through supplier diversity is not new. And so I truly believe that the cannabis industry has to embrace this concept and understanding. They're spending millions and millions of dollars, and this money is spent on services, on contract services, on supplies. And we want to make sure that communities of color, businesses of color, social equity businesses, small minority-owned businesses have an opportunity to go after and be able to participate as well. So I'm delighted to have our guest today. This young man, let me tell you something. This young man, I'm on LinkedIn and I get a ton of messages all the time. I can't tell you, a ton. And this young man was so consistent. Roz, I want to talk to you more about what I'm doing. Roz, how can I get connected with M for MM? So consistent, but also being consistent, so patient. And so with his patience, we finally connected. And I'm super proud to have him on the show today because he's going to talk about his journey. He's a supplier in the cannabis industry and how he got in, what he's doing, how he's looking to grow and to expand, and what's next for him. So without further ado, let me bring on Mr. Anthony Winston. Hey, Anthony, how are you?
Doing? Thank you for having me.
It's good to have you, man. So good to have you. Listen, I told him the story about LinkedIn. How funny is that? Like, you were so consistent.
Mhm. Yeah, I learned about you early on in my journey into cannabis, and I reached out. And I know you got a lot of followers. I know you're super busy, so I don't take things like that personally. And I would just, anytime you pop up on my timeline, hey, how you doing? And then it just so happened I met a lawyer. I'm a part of INCBA, and I met a lawyer out of Virginia, and she's like, "Oh, I should connect you with Roz," and I was like, "Please do." At the same time, you were hosting an event, a webinar that I was on, or you were hosting, and then I was attending, and I just slid in your DMs, and you responded, and then I was like, you got to be consistent and don't give up.
And be patient and don't take it personal. I wish I had enough hours in the day to answer some of the many messages, people wanting to get connected. There's some people that really are just out there, soliciting for business, and I get it. I mean, I understand. But long story short, you were patient, but you were consistent, and you had a goal in mind. So let's talk about you. Tell everybody, introduce yourself to everyone that's here. Tell them who you are and where you're from and what you do for a living.
Yeah, so my name is Anthony Winston III. I am the owner of Winston Engineering. My firm, we provide HVAC, electrical, plumbing, and civil engineering, construction permit plans for the cannabis industry. We also do stuff with non-cannabis as well. I'm originally from the South Side of Chicago. Lived there until I was 14, and then moved to Arizona. Lived there for about a year, and then I went to high school in California. That's where I really started to develop and kind of come into myself. I was doing really well in school, did really well in athletics, and I knew that I wanted to do something different that involved business ownership. I just didn't know how that was going to happen. And so I eventually went to Arizona State. Shout out Sun Devils. Shout out to my frat brothers at Phi Beta Sigma. That's where I pledged. And after I left there, I thought I would work in the power industry because and this is why it's so important to pay attention to mentors and go out there and get mentors. I had a professor who had been in the power industry for years, and he said, Anthony, he was from, I think he was forget which country he's from, but he pulled me aside. He had a really thick accent. He said, Anthony, he's like, I don't want to be offensive, but you're smart. You're a Black guy. I think you could do well in power. And I think what he was trying to say is you have so many opportunities being a minority that the industry would accept you. So unfortunately, it didn't work out. And I ended up working for a missile defense company. And I worked, on missiles and radar systems, testing those. And I realized that it wasn't for me. I fully understood the impact that these weapons could have on people. And so I left Boston and came back to California. But then once I got my engineering license, it was based in construction. So I left that industry, the government defense, and I took a pay cut to work for an electrical contractor to understand construction. And that's kind of where Winston Engineering came from. I saw drawings and realized there was a need and quit my job. And at the time, my wife was pregnant, and that was a tough one to say, I'm gonna leave a good paying job.
Is that entrepreneurial spirit, does that come through family or through just something that you have for yourself? Or because that's hard to take that leap and say, I'm going to work for myself.
I don't know where exactly it came from. I remember when I worked for the company in Boston, and the first few weeks I was there, they put out their financial report and they made, billions of dollars. Mm-hmm. And I stood up in this huge cubicle farm and I was like, you know what? I'm helping to do that. However small my part is, I'm helping to do that. Why don't I do that for myself? And that's when it just kind of bit me. I mean, I started a product development company trying to develop random products, which is very hard. And then, doing other little things. And then eventually I'm like, you know what, why don't I utilize my education and jump into engineering?
That's nice. And so your background wasn't even construction engineering to start out with, but then you just transitioned to it when you went and worked for the electrical company. Is that how it kind of went down?
Yeah. So I told you, I live near Marietta. So I was driving from Marietta to Corona in traffic, which is about, you're shaking your head. So,
listen, anyone that's lived in Southern California, a 30-mile drive will take you an hour and a half versus 30, 40 minutes in a normal city. So that's just California for you.
Oh, yeah. So I would drive an hour to Corona, catch the train into downtown LA, which is another hour and a half.
Oh, my gosh.
I'm spending 2.5 hours. And so once I understood the electrical drawings for buildings, I realized this is much simpler than missile and radar systems.
Yeah.
Once I started paying attention to the electricians in the field and hearing what their gripes are, I'm like, I could do this and I can do it better.
Yeah.
So while riding the train, I Googled how do you start a business? And it's so much free information out there. I have no business experience whatsoever other than the 7 years of being in business. And so I just ate up everything I could. I read as many books as I could. And that's where Winston Engineering came from. I used to ride the train with one of the executives of Razor, the scooters.
Yes.
And I became buddy with them, and they helped me choose my logo.
That's dope. That's so dope. I love it. I love it. So as you've started your company, then the proliferation, that we've seen in California has been the, ground zero for the legalized cannabis industry. We're talking today about supplier diversity and about, looking at this industry in totality and making sure that suppliers of diverse nature have an opportunity to be able to participate with delivering services based upon your skill set. So your skill set is very specific, is very intentional, is very tangible. How did cannabis come into the throw of things as you are now having Winston Engineering? Where did that connection come from?
It was so random. I get a call from somebody who has a warehouse in downtown LA, and he tells me it's a tomato grow. And so I'm the type of owner, I don't turn anything down. So I'm like, cool, tomato grow. That's cool.
I'll meet you there, right? I'll come check you out.
Yeah. And so this was 2017 when it became legal in California. And I had already been operating for 2 years doing residential commercial buildings. And so, he has grow lights everywhere. And I'm constantly asking questions. And I find out it's cannabis. And I can tell. And I'm like, this is cannabis, right? He's like, well, he's a little hesitant. I'm like, I'm fine. It's legal here in California.
Right.
And so from that point forward, I'm like, well, I guess I'm doing cannabis. And so, as you know, the cannabis industry is very tight knit. People typically use the same people, especially if you're good at what you do.
Yeah.
And so my name started getting passed around. My next project was in Long Beach, and we actually worked with the first license holder of Long Beach. And we did their facility. And then his next door neighbor just happened to walk in and was like, can you come do our extraction facility? And so it just kind of snowballed. And then once I started going to conferences, my very first conference was the Cannabis Business Times Magazine conference, their first one in Oakland.
Right.
And I go there, and my initial thought was, all right, cannabis, jumping into this industry is going to be a great moneymaker. That was what was on my mind. But then once I started getting to understand the plant, getting to understand the people behind the plant, I went to an event where this lady gives her child who has severe seizures, she gives them THC. Now, of course, you're not supposed to give it to a child, but it stops
the seizures.
Yeah. And as a parent, I have a 6 and a 7-year-old daughters. I'm gonna do whatever I need to make sure that my daughters are okay.
Right.
And so it started to hit home. And then, like, my grandmother, she was almost in a zombie state with so much medication that I'm like, Grandma, why don't you try these edibles? And now, she lives in Arizona. Now she's back to her normal self and is on half the medication. And so it started to become, the industry became a little bit more personal to me. And I stopped thinking about money. And it became, all right, this plant is amazing. That's one side of it. But then two, now I'm seeing all statistics about the disparities with Black folks in the industry. I'm like, all right, how can I help? And that's where it spurred me to reach out and say, this is what I can do to help, as opposed to, can you give me some business? Now, It's great we get business, but that's not the first thing I'm looking for. What I'm trying to do is try to get us in a better position beyond that, whatever that I think it's 2% number of us in the industry.
Yeah. It's when it comes to operators where we're touching the plant, maybe about 2%, but even we have no idea as a community, I think, of the dollars that's being spent on services across the board, from promotional items to packaging to, build outs, you name it. We're not even seeing the opportunity, or I shouldn't say seeing, but I don't even know if we can grasp the amount of money that's being spent, right, as an industry. And that's the whole point of MProcure in our conversation every first Friday, is to meet people like yourself. That I know when you got that phone call, you weren't thinking like supplier diversity. You like, okay, it's a referral, I'm on it, right? And so let's talk about the professionalism and just the level of service that you offer to make sure that experience is so top notch that you're going to get a call back to do something. I think it's so important to talk about that. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I was a bit shocked with the lack of professionalism in the beginning in the cannabis industry. Let me go back. So in college, I was a part of my fraternity, Phi Beta Sigma. I was a part of NSBE, National Society of Black Engineers. Yes. And you're
huge group. NSBE is huge.
Oh yeah, very big. And I was taught professionalism from day one in college. I didn't have I would go to like a fraternity, one of our regional conferences, and I'll see a brother sitting over there in a suit looking clean. And I'm sitting here, with what I have. I'm a broke college student. So now I understand this is how you behave when you're in a professional setting. And so through all of that has proliferated into what I do now. And so when I got into cannabis, I approached it the exact same way. So it was a little off-putting, right? You show up and you're dressed a certain way and they may be in sandals, but then you got to get out of that mindset because they've been underground for so long and now they're coming into it. So you got to bring a level of understanding to it.
Yeah. So let's stop right there. So everybody that's listening right now, the number one thing to think about is just because they do it doesn't mean that we can do it. And I'm just going to be honest, right? Mm-hmm. Because you'll walk in and try to do the same thing and you'll get the feedback, well, he wasn't very professional. However, that was the decorum. Everybody was doing it. Yeah. So we have to have, I just can't express the level of professionalism that we have to give, the follow-up, being able to be on time, being able to deliver on what we say we can deliver on. So I just want to kind of interrupt that because it's so critical. So that's takeaway number one for today. Go ahead, Anthony.
Yeah, and even I mentor some folks who reach out to me, and I always tell them you got to set the foundation, right? I know cannabis is a little different, especially with banking. Like I've been given a paper bag of money, and I'm like, what am I going to do with this? And so you got to set the right foundation, your marketing tools, how you approach people, be very intentional. Like it bugs me when people reach out on LinkedIn and they don't have a clear, I guess, path or a clear ask of what they want. And so you're sitting there like, I don't want to be friends. Like, what do you want? So,
or if maybe if it's not a clear ask, you're asking something that's so elementary. Like, I want to get into the industry. What should I do? Like, and I'm like, okay. And you don't want to be rude because we feel like we do have to kind of reach back and support or what have you. But I think it's so critical that we have to, my director of social economics, Simone Kaysen, always tells me this. She goes, Roz, as long as I got Google and God, I'm good. And really, that's all you need. Because Google will take you from the promised land and back if you just use it to figure out where your opportunities are. So I don't know.
And like I said, I try to go in be very understanding because I get a lot of people, especially younger folks on Instagram who will DM me and say, hey,
yes,
I don't even know how to write a business plan. And so I try to, I never ignore those requests because they need to be taught. And so starting with your business plan, understanding your finances. My business was a little different. I literally started with a $3,000 laptop and some software. We've never had a physical office, and I doubt I ever will. So overhead is very low. So unlike folks in the cannabis industry, my path was a little bit easier.
yes.
But you can make your path much easier as a supplier, right? If you just set the foundation up front, come in those meetings. I don't care what everybody else is wearing. You come in there with a button up, maybe your logo on your shirt, whatever the case may be. When I go to a construction site, I got my construction vest on, depending on where I'm at, I got my hard hat with the logo on. You're going to know who I am.
Yes. And, yes.
And
the thing about it is, you guys, in cannabis, the professionalism is so, like, we have a business etiquette and professionalism issue. So he could go on a site and everybody else some may have a hard hat on, some may not, some may be wearing goggles. But the fact that you know how you want to portray yourself, and that's how you present yourself, because word of mouth business is beautiful business. And it doesn't take much for you to get that opportunity and be able to add more clients to your portfolio. Once you get one good satisfied client, it's like wildfire.
Mm-hmm. It truly is. And that's why I was so persistent with reaching out to you, because I understand that you may not necessarily pay attention because you have maybe a tight-knit group of folks that you trust, right? So trust, I do not take that very lightly. I do what I say I'm going to do, and that's always, whether that's a detriment to myself.
No, it's a beautiful thing. So we talked about being professional, setting the foundation. When you got your first client and was able to work with that tomato growing, what have you, when you walked away from that project, did you know then that this was going to be a space for you? Were you like, okay, I got this? Like, and how did it transpire to the next person and the next person in the space for you from a referral perspective?
I didn't realize how big it was going to be until I went to that first conference. And that's when I was like, I can see a space here. And I think with us, we were very open about it. In the very beginning, nobody wanted to be, people on the supplier side, nobody wanted to be open about themselves being in cannabis.
Yes.
And I said, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and take a risk and do it. I remember asking, fraternity brothers, family, like, what do you think? And a lot of them were like, I don't know. I don't know.
Well, your frat is my board chair. So Eric Range is your Yeah. So I wish he was on today because he would be like, with y'all go mob and all that stuff that y'all do or whatever. He would be so excited right now. So E-Range, if you listen, I got your frat on with us. And I think he's talked to some of your fraternity brothers and during you guys when you have your regional meetings and your national, because we need to connect with our Black fraternal organizations. We need to tell them that this industry is for us and we don't have to be in the closet. Like, I can't tell you, when I first started out, people was like, oh, she and weed and she doesn't. Now I get more friends. They're like, Roz, can I talk to you for a second? Yeah, I got you. So I mean, the next point number 3, come out the closet. If you're listening, you want contracts, you gotta embrace the industry. It's not the devil's lettuce. It's not what people made it out to be. It's a respectable industry, and you have to embrace it. That means your website. That means your communication of who you are. You have to say that I service the cannabis community, right? Don't you think?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I understand, like you just mentioned, having the Black fraternal, sorority organizations involved. The only caveat is the federal side, right? Because a lot of these organizations, they get federal dollars.
Yeah.
And so I think once it becomes legal federally, and I know there's one side of the fence that says we shouldn't do that, and other sides like let's do it. But I think once it becomes legal federally, you'll get a lot more people embracing it because now you're not worried about banking,
right?
Which is a huge hurdle.
But the thing about it is so this is the power of this show. You got somebody already in, hey, Kimberly, she's in Triple Black Shamba Farms in Oklahoma. So she wants to know when you come to Oklahoma, I'm sure you're like, yes, I will.
We're licensed there. And actually they took an old Kmart and they're in construction now. So it's a 100,000 square foot facility that we did.
Wow.
So yes, Kimberly, we can absolutely
come to Oklahoma. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. So listen, Kimberly, hey, we'll make sure you get Anthony's information before we're done today. But you're absolutely correct in regards to putting out there, like even on the ancillary side, like you're not even touching plant. You're just actually your construction. So talk about like your service again. So your construction is build out, like the architectural, the drawings, you do that. You said about HVAC. Walk us through all the services that you do.
Absolutely. So let's say, Kimberly, for example, she wants to do a facility in Oklahoma. Typically what you do is, let's assume she wants to do a ground up. So you find a plot of land, you work with an architect. We don't do architecture. So architects typically draw everything that's in the building. You then bring in a civil engineer, which we provide civil engineering. Civil engineering does all the grading plans, does all your parking lots, your roads to the main road, all that good stuff, and you orient the building how you want it. Once that's complete.
So orienting means like when you do the like for a house when they do the different elevations, is that what that means? Okay.
So orient means like the actual location of the building on the property.
Okay.
And then once that's all done and the architect is finished doing all the floor plans, showing all the grow rooms, office space, all that good stuff, then we come in with MEP. So MEP stands for mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. Mechanical is your HVAC system. And then the architect hands us their AutoCAD files, and then we overlay our systems on that and do our complete design. We spit out a pretty PDF with our engineering stamp. You then take all your architectural, your MEP, and your civil drawings. You then go to your local jurisdiction, and it's going to be some rounds of plan check. They like this, they don't like this. It's just a natural part of construction. Once you pull that permit, then your builder can actually go and build it.
So when she takes those plans to the city or wherever she is to the permitting, they have their own engineers that look at what you've put together on paper, right?
Sometimes they're not necessarily engineers. A lot of times they're plan checkers who hopefully had experience.
Okay.
Sometimes if it's a very small jurisdiction, they'll sub that out to bigger companies. Like there's a company called S-Gill who that's all they do is do plan checks for different cities.
I got you. But this ain't your first rodeo. So even if a plan comes back, you have to tweak it or what have you, what you need to do to see that. So when that plan comes back and permits are pulled and you're ready to go, the builder, those that are building, are you still on site? Or is that where you kind of walk off and then it's now time for the builder to do their thing?
It depends. once they start construction, so let's say you pull your permits. If you do a design bid build, that means that you're going to multiple contractors to bid on building the job. And so what we can do is we can have what's called construction administration, where we're assisting with that process sometimes, where the contractor may have questions about certain things on the plans. And then once you've chosen a contractor to build it, they may tweak things on the fly in the field. And if they're a good contractor, what they'll do is they'll redline the plans and hand it to you and, say, hey, can you make this match? As long as it's safe, we'll change our plans. Because once the inspector comes in different stages through construction, our plans have to match exactly what's in the field.
Okay.
What happens, and everybody in this call, please pay attention to this. Don't make changes to our plans without telling us, because what's going to happen, the inspector is going to come by, they're going to see it doesn't match. He's going to give you, a failure, walk away, and he might not come back for a month. Now you have to come back to us, and maybe what you've done is maybe not safe or up to code, and then you got to rip it out and go all over again. So you have to work very closely with us if you're going to deviate from our plans.
Right. So for individuals that are, if your company, your organization, you've hired, Winston Engineering, basically you're saying once we create the plan, let's stay in communication. So if you want to deviate from it, bring it back to us so that we can help you figure out what the deviation, where you're pivoting, and then make those changes before you present that to the city for your permits. Is that correct?
Exactly, because who knows, maybe the supplier, especially now with people dealing with supply chain issues, maybe you can't get these lights that are rated at 300 watts, and now you have to go with one that's rated for 400 watts. So now you're adding much more consumption to your building, and so we got to go and do some calculations. We had a client, we went in there, they were using gas HVAC units, and a new contractor came in and swapped it out to all electric, and nobody told us. And so this was a massive building, and we had to do a lot of rework, and that was a very expensive change.
Yes.
But had you worked with us, maybe it would have been less painful.
Do you have situations where when you're working with someone that's doing a build out, maybe they have the space but don't want to utilize all of it because they just want to graduate into the space? So do you work with them to get them to like that first phase? Maybe, they're using 10,000 square foot of canopy, the building might be 10,000. You may have a max of maybe 50,000, but it's just, we're seeing more and more that individuals are starting small and graduating and building capacity. Can you go through that process with the owner as well?
Absolutely. We've had a couple projects. I think it's one in Palm Springs that we did that way. And it works just fine. The only thing that you kind of have to do future planning on is your power consumption. So
that's what I was going to ask about that, right?
We'll say, all right, you have a general idea of how you want to expand and what that looks like. Why don't we go ahead and show on our load calculations, all right, future room 3 through 5, right?
Yes.
And you kind of accounted for the major loads, which is your HVAC and your lighting and all the other things, fans and things like that.
Yes. So in a normal cycle, let's say after the permits, so we're not even going to talk about how you got to wait for permits. From once you get the permits to building, is there a time frame? Weather permitting, we're looking at 8 weeks, 12 weeks? Now, especially with COVID and lumber and all that issue, what's that time frame look like?
Do you mean for approval or just the complete building?
After the approval. So let's pretend like we got the approval from the city. We pulled all our permits. We're good. They're like, you're good to go. What are we looking like in regards to actual construction and, doing surveying the land? Not surveying the land, but, your outside area, sidewalk, you pave, all that stuff.
I couldn't give you that because it's so many variables involved with that.
Yeah.
Depending on who your builder is. Right now, builders are having a very hard time finding workers. And so that can slow things down. Depending on where you are in the country, weather could be an issue, right? Southern California, maybe not as much, but if you're in Florida where you guys get hurricanes, that could be very problematic. So
we don't get hurricanes that much, honey. We get them. We just don't get, but they're not. We get more storms where it rains like crazy for like 2 hours, and then the sun comes back out. So
it's probably like people how they look at California, like we're always having earthquakes.
They think there's earthquakes every hour. No, it's not. Like, and then when it comes, half the time it's not even a big deal. So yeah, we don't want people to shy away from Florida. But no, that's really cool. We got a comment. Here's somebody says, Fred, I need to talk to you. I'm setting up facilities in Colorado and Oklahoma. Bam, right. Another one. Yeah.
If for anybody that wants to reach out to me, you can shoot me an email. My email is anthony@winstонeng.com.
I'm going to put it up on the screen. Anthony@winstонeng.com, right?
That's correct.
Make sure I got it. And then let me know if I got this. Is that right?
That's all right. Perfect.
We'll make sure we get that on the screen. But so Anthony, so the work that you're doing, do you see yourself going and adding more services on top of what your core foundation, if somebody wants more than that? Like, you're not a general contractor. Do you have a desire? That's like a totally different vein. Let me get this out. The general contractor is the actual builder, right? That's building it. Okay, all right.
So actually, I'm always planning for the future, and I have a mock org chart on my board right now with future business, business that we want to chase. Now that we've added civil, if we add structural engineering, we'd really be dangerous. So structural engineering deals with making sure the building doesn't fall down. So that's right. That's extremely important. In terms of being a contractor, I've been asked that a couple times, and the answer is always no, because that's a whole different world. It's so many variables that could cause issues. Right now, you're dealing with my time and my knowledge, right? I'm sending you a digital PDF. We don't even deal with prints. We're totally paperless. And so
everything that goes on is paperless, huh?
It is. A lot of cities are moving towards you being able to upload your drawings. They still got cities where you have to print out 3 copies of these huge sheets and take them in. But a lot of places are going digital. But in the construction world, now you're dealing with varying manpower. You're dealing with materials. You're dealing with a ton of different schedules. That's a headache that I just don't want.
Yeah. Make sure I got this right. Is that the right website too? WinstonEng.com?
It is /Cannabis, because that'll take you to our general site, because we do this too, but /Cannabis will take you right to our Cannabis.
Good job. We'll do that. So what do you see? So we talked about just your experience. So you're licensed in, tell us the state that you're licensed in to do business.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to visualize the U.S. I am licensed in California, Oregon, Washington, Colorado, Arizona, Texas, Nevada, Oklahoma, Illinois, Delaware, New Jersey, and Nova Scotia, Canada.
Ooh.
So it's
what? So talk us through. Was that designed by purpose of where you were based upon where you're getting clients, or you just knew those were states that you wanted to get licensed in? And are you taking a board test for each state? I mean, that's impressive.
Yeah, it's a lot, especially when those renewal fees come around. But and there are people who have all 50 states. It's rare, but they do. Some of it is me chasing work, like New Mexico, right? Cannabis is it either passed or it's going to pass. I can't remember.
It just passed. Actually, today is the first day of legalization.
Oh, there you go. So I pay attention to those things, and sometimes I preemptively get my license in those places. I did that for Illinois, and it kind of bit me in the butt because they're still dealing with some stuff.
Yes.
New Jersey came along because I'm like, all right, there's going to be some opportunity there. Delaware came along because a client came to us and said, hey, we got this project in Delaware. We need you. So I said, all right, I'll get my license in parallel to doing the project. And so by the time the project was done, we had our licensing. So to answer your other question, I don't have to take an exam again. I do it through reciprocity. So it's just some fees. Sometimes we have to take like an ethics exam.
Sure.
But that's about it. And then we're good to go. And some cities you renew every year, some every 2 years. So it's all over the place. And I got to stay super organized to make sure that we don't let anything lapse. So
I was going to ask Yeah. Like, do you have, so who's on your team? Do you know, I know you were saying you're married. I don't know if your wife works with you, but you have a project manager, or you manage all this, or you have assistants. Talk about your team and
Yeah.
what's the makeup of Winston Engineering?
Yeah. So my wife, she's technically part owner, but she's a teacher. So she doesn't deal with the business other than me, making big financial decisions. I run that past her, obviously.
Yes, listen, Eric Range is on. That's your frat, and he tells me, "Happy wife, happy life." So he goes, "I got to run it by my wife first," and I'm like, "I understand, brother. Check with Tamika first. I love it."
Everybody has to be happy. Happy spouse, happy house.
Everybody got to be happy. Everybody got to be happy.
Good job, Eric. And so the makeup of our team is we have our office manager, Brooke. She does all the intake. She does all the contracts. She does all the billing. And then we have, I'm a licensed electrical engineer. And then we have our senior mechanical engineer who does our mechanical and plumbing, Francisco. And then we have our MEP drafter. She's actually an architecture student. So she sets up our sheets so the engineers can come up behind her and finish it up. And then we have our electrical engineer, Nick, and then he's actually going to become licensed soon. And then we have our civil engineer, Jaffer, who has a couple of decades of experience, similar to Francisco. I think Francisco has 30 years of experience. So we have a really solid team. I was just on a meeting before this, speaking with Jaffer. We're going to have to ramp up our civil. So anybody know any civil designers or civil drafters out there? Because we're gonna get busy really soon here.
Yeah. So civil, remind me again. That's not the construction. That's the you mentioned like the outside sidewalk area.
Everything outside the building, right? They sometimes show utility hookups going to the building, and then MEP takes everything inside the building.
Inside the building. Got it. We got some
more. New York. New York is on my list. If you got a viable project, we'll submit our license application immediately. So,
yeah. Listen, he ain't scared. Anthony is not. Let me tell you, Anthony, you start running off state. So I thought you was gonna stop halfway through, and then when you went on, and then you topped it off with Nova Scotia, I said, okay, you're not playing around. You're really serious about this thing, and this is again going back to the point of, guys, that getting opportunities. In this industry, you have to invest in yourself, invest in your business, but also be so serious about what you're doing. And when opportunity calls, be ready for it. And so now you have how many projects do you have under your belt that you could tap, that you could reference out to, like, cannabis projects, would you say?
We have about 25 to 30 projects. It ranges from cultivation, extraction facilities, manufacturing. We did a hemp processing facility in Colorado. So quite a few dispensaries. We've done some delivery facilities, like we got one in Santa Monica. Santa Ana. So we're kind of all over the place in Canada.
Nice. So like, as we start to look at, your business and looking at, where do you see yourself? Like right now you got 25 strong projects under your belt. How do you manage that? Plus new referrals, like even on here, you've gotten at least 3 to 4 people are like, hey, I need to touch base with you or what have you. Do you have a salesperson and do you have someone that's forecasting so you know when to start building capacity or ramping up? Or how does that balance? It's a very delicate balance, because the one thing that we want to do with MProcure is make sure that we find the businesses who are contract ready. So say, for example, if there's an MSO that has about 5 to 7 build outs or what have you that are coming up, we want to make sure that when we're referring, that you as a company, that you're contract ready. Like you guys, meaning you're ready to go. Anthony is, of course, it's just a matter of capacity. But I want to challenge people that are listening today that contract ready means if someone says, hey, I got an opportunity for you, is your business, are you legal in your state? You can't just have the business and not have your fees paid and show that you're in the system. You have to make sure that you have your own agreements ready. They may give you their agreement, but you can always counter back with your own agreements. Just having, the ability to go into a contract and be ready to service that contract. So love to get your thoughts on that fine balance of managing business and bringing on new business.
Yeah. So when I first started the company, I was by myself. I was doing everything. I was marketing. I was doing the work, picking up the phones, all of that. And I was driving myself crazy. And I think what a lot of business owners, they get into the rut of, I don't want to spend the money because it's going to affect my bottom line if I get help. Where in reality, when you get help, that allows you to focus on the big picture. So now, let's say you're paying someone $20, $30 an hour to answer the phones, your big picture task, well, maybe that's $200, $300 an hour, right? When you actually get a project. But in terms of our intake, our capacity, I'm more doing things like this. Shout out to my team. They're amazing because it allows me to step away where I'm not digging into the designs as much. I can now focus on customer acquisition, getting our name out there, having amazing conversations with folks like you. And we use Monday.com. Monday.com, an amazing project management tool. And we'll, let's say the person from New York saying, hey, we got 3 projects. We'll pull up Monday.com. It's very visual. We can say, all right, we can start your project mid-April, maybe May, and we'll finish at this time. So we're very transparent with our deadlines. And I'm not opposed to hiring more folks so that we can keep production going. Sure. Luckily, we haven't gotten so busy where we're turning away work. But if it got to that point, that's when we're like, all right, we can start ramping up and hiring more people. Sure. Strategically, right? Because you're going to have down periods, and that's not always that great. But we're very transparent about our timelines. And the worst thing you want to do is take on a ton of work, and then you're falling behind, and then the work suffers because you're taking on more than you can chew. And that doesn't help anybody, and that ruins your reputation. And then you lose business, and then you go out of work, out of business. So.
Absolutely. Can you share with the listeners and the viewers a time where you've worked in the cannabis industry, or maybe had a client that just didn't go? What you had a challenge, you had to kind of figure out how to overcome it. Maybe what that challenge was. Was it the client? Was it on your side? And just give us some words of wisdom when you have some rough, because we're going to have rough patches, right?
Mm-hmm. We did a project. I believe it was near Skid Row in LA. And first, they didn't bring on engineers early enough. They had already signed a lease for the building. That's cheat code number 1. Please get engineers involved early, because we can save you a headache instead of you purchasing or leasing a building. That's not going to work. I walk into the space, and the first thing I ask them, I say, where are you going to put your condensing units, your HVAC units? Everybody kind of looks around like, I don't know. And you go out front, and there's a lot of homeless people. So you can't put them there because there could be issues with vandalizing. And on top of that, this project we were doing with an architect who had never done cannabis before. And wow. They're awesome architects at what they do, but cannabis is not just a regular building. You have to understand the flow going from room to room, right? Understanding that you don't want to have crossover in case there's some type of, some type of bug that can get and affect all your crops. And so these are the little things that you learn from working in the industry. And so there was a ton of rework, because then they later brought in a consultant to kind of fix the drawings. And then the client ran out of money. And so the project just kind of fell apart. Whereas if they would have brought in an engineer and an architect who was experienced in cannabis, their business probably wouldn't have failed.
Wow. Yeah, I think I just wrote a note for everybody, because we're going to go and recap this. But one of the things that I just wrote on here was get your engineer first before you buy or lease. I think that was a critical piece of information, especially, for those, and shout out, hey, Dr. Adams. Dr. Adams is our New York State Director with M4MM. He's on today listening. And New York has these older buildings, and, real estate is at a premium in New York. And I think when you have, issues with real estate, older buildings, and maybe just, access points, all the things, security, because you're thinking about everything. You're thinking about security. You're thinking about, how do you, the HVAC situation, your room flow, all that kind of good stuff. Having an engineer look at property before you put money down or you lease it or what have you It's critical. You may pay money out of pocket to get that engineer there, but it's definitely critical. And to have someone that has cannabis experience for whichever operator license you're going after. Talk about that, Anthony, how important that is.
Yeah, because there are certain things that even if you went to another MEP firm, that if they don't have experience in cannabis, they won't know, right? There are certain jurisdictions where maybe they don't want to see your condensing units. So you didn't think about that. Now you got to put up a fence. Or if you have a massive, massive building, your roof structure, if it's not beefy enough, now you have to get a structural retrofit. And if it's in California, you got to get a seismic retrofit, which is even more expensive. Right. So having someone like that, we do consulting services where we go out. Let's say you have, I hope you have 3 or 4 buildings you want to look at, so you can utilize the whole day. But we'll go to each building and evaluate it from an MEP perspective. Because if your roof is not strong enough, well, are you going to put them on the outside, on the ground? Or do you have proper setbacks from your neighbor's property, right? We had a project in Palm Springs where they had a security gate, the ones with the hooks on them, and they wanted to put their condensing units there. And I said, well, wait a minute, if you have to get these serviced, what if an HVAC tech climbs up there and falls on those spikes? So you got to bring in your knowledge of MEP, but also your knowledge of dealing with cannabis facilities, because
of course
you'll get in a world of hurt and you won't make it.
Of course. What do you like designing more or working on more? You like the cultivation, processing, retail? You like dispensaries? What's kind of, is there anything that you fancy more than something else?
I like them both. The great thing about dispensaries is the visual aspect of it. So with a dispensary, especially if you get a really good designer, it looks very pretty, right? It's cool to promote on social media. You can actually go there. Where with dispensaries, you can't always do that. I went to a complex out in the desert, and you pull up, dude has a Glock on his hip. You got to take your ID. It's a process to get in there. And where with a dispensary, it's not as bad, and you can actually go and look at it and say, I did that. So that's kind of cool.
So that is very cool. We got a question for you. Let's get, Kimberly has a question. And she says, does an outdoor grow have the same structural issue as indoor? We are an outdoor with the need for a drying area indoor.
Same structural issues. Well, with an outdoor grow, I assume she means like a greenhouse. Not really, because your HVAC equipment is typically sitting on the ground somewhere, and you usually have tons of space. So that's not really an issue at all. Indoor grow, I think per pound gets a lot more per pound because you're able to control your environment a lot more.
Sure.
So now you're dealing with a lot of panels and all types of heavy stuff. So indoor is absolutely much more structurally intense.
So do you currently have do you interact with students, interns, or anything of that nature that want to, and specifically we have an HBCU program, would love maybe to get you to do some traveling conversations about what you do. We work with Florida A&M University, Southern University, we have chapters there, and especially at FAM, they have a great architectural school, but would love to know, do you touch students as well, or interns, or have a desire to have them, be able to learn what you're doing?
If I could have someone step into my role now, I would absolutely do that so that I can deal with and handle and mentor young folks as much as I can. I think that's so important. Before COVID hit, I was going to the different high schools. Like my old basketball coach used to bring me into his business class, and I would talk to the kids, and I truly enjoy that. And especially when they look like you, because it's a lot of times they haven't seen it. I'll never forget, I went to a local high school, and it was predominantly Hispanic and Black, and I had the entire football team surrounding my table, and they're just like in awe that you're a business owner, but you're also engineering, and it's cool to talk to you. And so that kind of opens them up and lets their guard down to take in a lot more information. But to answer your question about interns, that's absolutely on my list to do, because our industry is struggling to find people, and it's because we're not getting as many folks going into the industry. And
Yes.
so it's aging. I've literally got clients because their engineer passed away.
Wow.
So
Yeah. So what do we do? Do you have thoughts on how do we infiltrate our, you're a member of NSBE, your
yeah.
fraternity is Phi Beta Sigma.
Mhm.
We want there's so many professionals and business owners that are within these organizations who can really take a peek, be able to grab a piece of this opportunity in cannabis. Any ideas of how we cross that bridge to get people connected to our message of this opportunity is for you too?
It's really tough because the industry has such a stigma, which is, in its defense, it's getting better. But I feel like it's still not as accepted as it should be,
Sure.
which is problematic. I think in terms of suppliers, when I was at the Black Cannabis Magazine conference in New Orleans,
New Orleans, yes.
Wanda James was on stage and she said, whatever it is that you do, just add in cannabis. So if you're a CPA in cannabis, right? I'm an engineer in cannabis. Um, I think that's how we can break into it. And you approach it like you would any normal business, but just understand that your clientele may not be the clientele that you're used to. So you have to have that patience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, man, I want to go back to our point. So we talked about one, be professional, set the foundation, focused on Winston Engineering is a mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineering firm, correct?
And
Got it?
civil.
And civil.
Yeah.
Here's the website. So then if you want to get with Anthony, here is his this is his email. Because we're being so intentional. I told Anthony, we got on here before we got on. I said a prayer. I said, Lord, we about to get Anthony a whole bunch of business because you heard me praying, Anthony.
I did.
I mean that because I think we deserve to have this opportunity, and it doesn't always have to be in the operator space where we're touching plant. And I'm just excited about connecting with you now. Now we best of friends, we best buddies. You'll get my cell phone number. Just call me if you need me. You don't even need me. You are fine. You are like I need you to be honest with you because the discipline and the focus that you have is just it's fantastic, and it makes me so proud. And I'm proud to have you on my show today. Proud to connect you with M for MM. Definitely want to have you back on, have you be a part of us when we get ready to do tours and go to some of these different schools, the HBCUs. They need students. They really gravitate when they see us and we make things simple and plain and they get it. Their eyes are this big because they are ready to absorb that information, that energy, and we need that. So I want to give you the last words. Anything you want to leave with our audience? Anything you want to say? Please share with us.
Yeah. Even if it's not related to a specific project, if you just have business questions on the business tools that we use, hit me up, ask me. I have no problem, helping folks out as much as I can. Social media, we're on every platform, just Winston Engineering. We're having a webinar, free webinar, this upcoming Tuesday, the 5th, whatever date that is, or whatever day that is. I think it's Tuesday the 5th on cogeneration. So a lot of these cultivation facilities they're having issues finding power. So cogeneration is essentially using a generator, but within it, it's capturing the heat to then turn another turbine so that you can have even more power. And so this allows you to go off grid where you're not relying on utilities, or you can just use it sometimes during the day during peak demand to save you money. So if you go to our website, to events.
Well, how do we get? I need you to send me the graphic, the information, how people can sign up, because
Absolutely.
we need to. I would like to, if you're willing. I don't know if you have time or not, and we can do it and record it and then just play it or what have you. But do something on what people when you're going after what you should do when looking for real estate for to become an operator and being able to have that conversation. And then maybe the next one is, how to work with your engineer. Now that you have your license, what's next with the role and responsibility of the engineer? Something like that we can maybe come back on this platform. We'll record it, but we'll have it live in perpetuity so people can hear from an engineer that listen, honey, you know what you're talking about. And we need to learn from you so that we don't make the mistakes. So would you be willing to maybe support me in that, Anthony?
Absolutely. I told you, Roz, the first time I talked to you, wherever you need me, I'm there. So I got some presentations that I can do on just what to look out for when you're looking for a building. And then, like you said, take it a step further and how you work with us. And I can pull up graphics and show floor plans and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, so I think we're going to do a 3-part series, and of being respectful of your time. But once we do it, we record it, and then it lives in perpetuity. And you can have it. We can put it on our website or whatever. But we had Mariella. She's in Puerto Rico, and she loved that generator idea because Puerto Rico is, again, about to go, looking at becoming adult use program, which is going to have more people on the island having to produce, meaning having to draw down power, and they already have power issues sometimes. So, so that Cogeneration, send me that. So Tuesday we get it, and we want to get everybody to tune in to your webinar and be able to absorb that knowledge.
Yep, Tuesday the 5th. And the website is just winstoneng.com/cannabis and then /events. And and it's right there. We're doing it through Ring Central there. It's actually their beta platform for webinars, so it should be really cool. So I'm looking forward to it. We have Kinsley Energy, who's going to come on and talk about their product. I'm not big on necessarily saying, hey, you got to use their product, but at least you understand the concepts.
Of course. And then you have options where you can shop around or what have you. Well, you promise give me a graphic or flyer so I can put it on our social media. I want to see as many people as possible that can tune in. This is critical. You have to know, if you want to grow, you got to know what your energy source is, because that's going to be your number one cost. That's going to be the number one reason why you get shut down. If you start pulling so much energy that it becomes a nuisance for your city or your small municipality. So this is something that's so important. And timing is everything, man. I'm so excited.
We hear it. Like I said, I'm here for you, Roz, whenever you need me.
Listen, I appreciate you so much. Anthony, thank you so much for being with us today. Everybody, please make sure Anthony is giving this information. He's telling you right now, if you need something, be specific, though. Don't call him just want to chit-chat. Listen, all right? I'm telling you, this is a busy man. He got a lot going on, but he's willing to work with you. And then if you have some services that you need, he's not going to do it on the free. It costs. I'm just telling people, and just want to make sure, not saying that folks are asking for anything free, but I just want to make sure that we're respectful of this businessman. But you guys, if you have a service and if you need his service, he is open and willing to work with you guys and be able to support you and make your dream come to fruition. So Anthony, thank you so much for being on today. This is MProcure. If you're not signed up on MProcure, get signed up. If you're a business and you have a service to offer the cannabis industry, please make sure you go and sign up on MProcure.org. Here, I'll put it on the screen, www.MProcure.org. When you go on there, you will see sign up for my business. You want to be in our database. We are intentionally looking to connect you with brands, companies, cannabis companies. We're going to do a highlighting businesses who are contract ready. So make sure that you go to that website, put your information, sign up, for the network to be included, and we can be able to search based upon the area, your expertise. So if your promotional items, the simplest things, it could be something as simple as paper clips. It could be something as simple as when you go and you're able to, when you have to go and to a dispensary or go to a cultivation site, you have to put on the onesie gear. You have to put on the foot protectors. It can be that. Go find a foot protector company, do a deal with them, and come back to cannabis and say, now I provide foot protectors. You buy it wholesale, you sell it retail. Hey, listen. You can do it. You can do it, guys. I'm so excited. Thank you so much. Let me see. We got some. Okay, wind powers per. Okay, so Kimberly, you got some great questions. You definitely need to tap into Anthony. Anthony, I think you're gonna get a call from Oklahoma very soon. Yep, and then we're gonna put Anthony. I'm gonna see if I can put this on. I just messed up that. But Anthony is on LinkedIn. So if you go to Anthony Winston III on LinkedIn, you'll find him. I'm trying to see if I can. Hold on one second. Oh, here it is. I'll get it right here. Copy it and then put this in our chat as well. So you guys have this. All right. Any special plans for this weekend, Anthony?
Bunch of museums with my kids. They have a cool interactive Van Gogh thing in San Diego.
I hear it's really cool.
Yeah, so I'm gonna take my little ones. We at least once a month we try to go to a museum and immerse them in something. So
yeah, how old are they?
6 and 7, 2 little girls.
Oh yeah, yes. Keep them busy.
Yep, I gotta go pick them up from school in about an hour. So
all right. Well, we appreciate you, brother. Take care. Thank you so much. You and I know we'll be talking. You guys, please give it up. Round of applause for Anthony Winston with Winston Engineering. So happy to have you. I'm signing off. I'm Roz McCarthy. Signing off, guys. Man, this has been an awesome day, and I'm going to go take a little rest. And I'm going to be in Ohio. If you're in Cincinnati, I'll be at the Cannabis conference, medical marijuana conference in Cincinnati this weekend. But yeah, take some rest, take some time out, take care of your family, take care of yourself, love on yourself. Know that we will be here every first Friday in MProcure. This is our Supplier Diversity Talk. I'm Roz McCarthy signing off. Have a great one. Bye, guys.